absolutely love the DC characters, so today I'm going to share my favorite moment from every moment in the DCEU. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies and nerdy stuff way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your favorite moment from every movie in the DCEU. My list obviously is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours, and let's get started. Kicking things off with Man of Steel, my favorite thing about this movie is just the sequences where Kal-El learns his true identity. I've said it many times before, but I love stories of becoming, where someone goes through the transformational process and becomes the best version of themselves. And in the first hour or so of this movie, you have a Clark Kent who's been raised by the Kents to be a good man, but not exactly sure who he is. So he's on this journey of discovery. And then you have a series of sequences where he slowly realizes his true identity and embraces who he is. One of the things that makes these sequences so good is Hans Zimmer's score that's just designed in a way to amp you up, and you feel that in each of these sequences, and it is awesome. To give this movie a runner-up on my favorite moments, it's the simple fact that Superman punches people in the face. One of the problems with Superman Returns is that he carried a bunch of rocks and picked up cars and stuff like that, got shot in the eye, but he didn't punch people in the face. And in Man of Steel, you get a bunch of fight sequences, and they're all done with Zack Snyder's visual flair and just kind of that dynamic nature that he brings to these sequences, so they are awesome. Next movie is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and for this movie, I'm gonna go with the obvious pick, the warehouse fight sequence. Now, in this movie, we finally get a Batman that feels like a brawler. Back in the 60s, when Batman punched someone, you'd get a biff or a pow. In the 80s and 90s, the suits were so restrictive that the actors couldn't even turn their head, and you kind of see that in the fight sequences. For all the things that Christopher Nolan did great, the fight sequences in his Batman movies are not particularly exciting. And then you get to Batman v Superman, and you have a Batman that is fast, he's agile, he's brutal, he's body slamming people, he's throwing things left and right, and it's finally the Batman we've always wanted to see on the big screen, and it absolutely pays off. A runner-up on this one would be the dialogue between Bruce and Alfred. Supposedly Oscar-winning screenwriter Ben Affleck did a lot of his own personal rewrites to give that dialogue a little bit more zip and pop, so it's a little bit more poignant and insightful than some of the dialogue in the rest of the film, and I think you see that in the sequences. Next up, we have Suicide Squad, and of course my favorite moment for this movie is when the credits started to roll. Now, seriously, on this one, probably my favorite sequence is when they first get to the city and they're attacked by those putty mutant creatures, and they first have to kind of go into action. The music kind of swells at one point in time. You have Deadshot up on a car, mowing guys down with his guns, and you just kind of can see perhaps a little bit more of what David Ayer wanted this movie to feel like versus how the movie got recut and reshot and rewritten to match better what the studio was trying to do after the Deadpool came out and after the trailer was a hit with rock music in it. That sequence, I think, just has a little bit more of the flavor that I think what he was going for based off of what he's kind of said in some of the tweets. Likewise on this movie, this isn't a moment, but I also just enjoyed the character dynamics. It seemed like most of the casting was actually quite good. Some of the dialogue between them can work really nicely to have the banter between a group of lunatics that don't actually like or trust one another. It's the plot in the story where everything kind of falls apart. That will bring us to Wonder Woman, and I'll go with the obvious choice on this one, the No Man's Land sequence. It works on pretty much every single level. When it comes to the character development, this is the moment where Wonder Woman is finally revealed to all these people to who she is, and it's designed in such a way to you just feel all the emotions as she takes the coat off, steps up to be the warrior. It's designed to put hope into a hopeless situation, so much so that I had to punch my microphone at that particular moment. And beyond that, it's shot in a gorgeous fashion with the way the colors are used, the way it's framed, the way the bullets are ricocheting off of her shield. It makes for an exciting, thrilling action sequence that just stirs up the emotions. Runner-up on this one will just be the interactions between Steve and Diana. I think they have great on-screen chemistry. They have a mutual respect while mutual confusion about the other person, and it just makes for a romance that I think works in a lot of really funny bits. That brings us to Justice League. My favorite moment related to Justice League is the moment they announced the Snyder Cut.
Excellent!
If I have to pick some footage shot for the movie, it would be this line of dialogue from Batfleck.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
Which, of course, wasn't included in the film that they released. Oops! And so instead, I will go for the sequence where Aquaman accidentally sits on the lasso of truth and therefore is being unusually honest with everybody, but we don't know at first why he's saying the things that he's saying. This is classic Joss Whedon humor.
You're gorgeous and fierce and strong and
It doesn't really mesh well with the Zack Snyder aspects of this film, but you can see where, had this not been a Frankenstein monster of a film, if Joss Whedon had just been the creative force from beginning to end, there's some clever things that he could have done, because the simple concept of there being a lasso that if you touch it, it makes you say things you wouldn't otherwise say, that could lead to funny scenarios. Joss Whedon found that moment. Most of the other humor he threw in this movie doesn't really work, doesn't land, doesn't fit at all. But if I'm being honest, that sequence right there, I think it's really funny. Real quick before we get to the final 3 movies of the DCEU, remember to give me your picks down below in the comment section. Also, I've done a bunch of other DC related content, and I've also done a bunch of these my favorite moment from videos. You can check those out right up here when this video is done. From there, we make it to Aquaman, and one of my absolute favorite things about this movie is that James Wan shot the action sequences with wide shots and long takes. One of the things that drives me bananas in action movies is when action sequences are shot with close-up, quick cuts, and you just can't tell what's going on. You can't see the stunts, the geography, the choreography, and that's not at all what James Wan did here. Whether we're in a house at the beginning that does kind of this big sweeping action as Nicole Kidman is just destroying a bunch of these guys from Atlantis, or of course the chase sequence later in the film where you see everything as it's happening as they're running through this city on top of buildings, as things are exploding all around them. You can see all of it, make out the action, and it's exciting. Runner-up on this one would, of course, be when the Pitbull song starts playing as they head to Africa.
I've been overlooked, stepped on, left.
Then we have Shazam, and for this one, I think I just gotta go with the humor. I loved so much of this stuff where he becomes Shazam and he just keeps screwing up. Whether it's when he first starts flying and gets hit by a bus, when he's trying to fly and he accidentally jumps into a building. There's all of these great moments where he's so excited while messing up at the same time, and Zachary Levi plays all of it to perfection. And so then my runner-up on this one, I guess I will kind of go with just the finale of it, where they do the whole Shazam family. All of the other people, this adopted family, become a true family of Shazams and gain powers, and they find a lot of great jokes in there. I forgot Adam Brody had been cast in this movie, so when he showed up, it was just such a pleasant surprise, such great casting for the character, and so I thought it worked really nicely. I don't know if it sets them up well for a sequel, the sequel that they have planned, but in the movie itself, it was a great payoff to the themes, the plot, the character dynamics that they'd set up. And finally, Birds of Prey and the unbelievably long title, or just Harley Quinn if you saw it after its first weekend in the theaters. For this one, I will go with the jailbreak sequence where she breaks into the jail and starts beating up all of the cops. And it wouldn't make sense until you remember that the movie's being told from her perspective and she is an unreliable narrator. Apparently for this sequence, they brought in the John Wick crew as well as Sam Hargrave, the guy that directed Extraction, was the stunt coordinator for Endgame and a whole bunch of the MCU films, and they worked on these sequences, and so there's all of these shots that are just fantastic inside of it. Margot Robbie was all in on a bunch of this stuff, and so some of the crazier things that you see where she's like flipping all around the guys and twisting them, she did a lot more of that than you would immediately think she would be able to do. It's exciting, it's fun, it's different, it's shot really well, so that's one that I absolutely love about this film. If you've enjoyed this video and you want more like it, I've got DC related content right there, ton of rankings, Batman movies, Superman movies, DCU rankings. Also right down there, you can find more of these videos where I talk about my favorite moment from various different franchises. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.